Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Luan, and I will be presenting to you this afternoon. I am from Cape Town, South Africa, where it is cold and rainy today. It would be wonderful to hear where you are from, so please say hello in the chat and tell us where you are. Tell us your name, tell us where you are. With TEFL, you always get to meet and speak to people from around the world, one of the perks of the job. And today is no different. So please tell us who you are and where you're from today. Just a little bit about me. I've been a teacher for over 13 years. I've had the privilege of teaching students from all over the world. And I'm happy to share this time with you today to help you get started on what I can assure you will be a life-changing career. So while we wait for those names to come in, just a little bit of a reminder that today's webinar is on a very, very particular topic. So we will be sticking to this topic, and I will, of course, answer questions a little bit later on, but the questions I answer today will only be related to today's topic. If you do have questions outside of today's topic, of course, you can send them to tutor support as always, where our friendly tutors are more than happy to assist you and to answer all your questions. Today, we will have a Q&A session towards the end of the presentation. So if you have questions, and I'm sure you will, it's about an assignment. I'm sure you'll have lots of questions. Hold on to them for now and type them a little bit later on when I do open up Q&A. The reason I urge you to do this is because if you type your questions a little bit too early on, I might miss them later on when I finally do check on what's come in. So hold on to those questions, and when I open up Q&A, punch them in so that I can get to them and answer as many of them as possible today, right? So let's just have a look at the names that have come in. We've got viewers from Alabama today, from Italy, from South Africa, more from South Africa, from UK. Wow, living in Rome, Italy, lucky, but also from Los Angeles, from Cape Town, where I'm from today. Yeah, we've got visitors from everywhere, and also complaining about the weather in South Africa. I hope wherever you are that you're having much better weather today. All right, so just a little bit of a reminder that today's webinar is about a very particular topic. It is about that assignment B, and I know that lots of you have questions about assignment B or feel a little overwhelmed at this point. And I do guarantee you by the end of this webinar, you'll feel equipped and you'll feel more at ease and ready to start the assignment or to continue and finish the assignment as soon as possible. All right, so let's get going. We've got a lot to get through. And I think something important that we're going to discuss today is the makeup of this assignment, just to give you that direction that you need. So let's have a look at all the different aspects we're going to be looking at today, right? So the first thing we're going to explore is exactly what the assignment assesses. Why are we giving you this assignment? There is a reason, and we're going to look at that today. We're also going to look at the form you're expected to teach in this assignment. So remember, I'm sure at this point you already know that the assignment is grammar based, right? So we're going to explore that form a little bit. We're also going to look at the structure of a grammar lesson, the various documents that you're going to be downloading and working with. And then as we go along, there are just loads and loads of tips to help you get started, or just to clarify all those confusing bits and pieces that you might have questions about. So remember that, of course, today we'll clarify a lot of that. And also, I'll answer some of those questions later on. But also a reminder that if we do get to the end of this webinar and you haven't asked your question, or you're like me and you think about a question in the middle of the night, then you can send it to tutor support and we'll be happy to answer you. All right, so as mentioned, today's webinar, we're going to be looking at the what the assignment assesses, the form that you've got to teach in the assignment, the structure of a grammar lesson, the various documents you are to download, and then of course there'll be all these wonderful tips right through the webinar. So I urge you to sit there with a pen and paper, write things down, but also remember that you can watch this webinar later on, a few days from now, and also our previous webinars also that are all available on our YouTube page. Right. So I promised you that I would tell you exactly what the assignment assesses. Why do we give you this assignment? So the assignment serves as an assessment of the following, right? Your ability to create a grammar lesson. So, lots of us are maybe feeling comfortable by now with a skills lesson if you've done assignment A, or the concept of teaching vocabulary might feel a little bit more familiar, but a grammar lesson might be a bit daunting. So we are looking to assess your ability to put one together. We also want to assess your understanding of the PPP lesson plan. We're going to take a look at what that entails a little bit later on. Your understanding of MFP, meaning, form, pronunciation, and also techniques. Teacher language techniques like eliciting and concept checking. So remember, we can't watch you teach these lessons, unfortunately. So these files in your assignment are really what we have to go on in order to hear you and to better visualize what this lesson will look like in an actual classroom. So that's exactly why we give you the assignment, so that we can see what your teaching style is, what you sound like when you speak to students, and what sort of context and engaging techniques you will use to present grammar to your students. Right, so the first thing we're going to look at is what is the form that I am meant to teach in this assignment. So remember, in any given grammar lesson, there is one form that you're going to teach. We very rarely teach 2, 3, 4 forms in one grammar lesson. It's too much, even for an advanced student, right? So one form that you have to research, one form that you have to present to your students. So the form is the first conditional form. An example sentence there is, if it is hot tomorrow, I will go to the beach. In this lesson and assignment, please use only if and will. Do not teach this form with when or any other modal verbs. Keep to the structure that we specify in the instructions. The reason for this is that there's a particular function that the structure reinforces, and we want you to stick as closely to that as possible. And it's not to keep you caged and to prevent you from exploring your creativity. Your creativity, as you'll see later on, comes in other shapes and forms. But the basic structure is if and will. If it is hot tomorrow, I will go to the beach. If I study for the test, I will pass. If I get money for my birthday, I will buy some games. So as you can see, it's all about future possibility. So do yourself a favor and research the MFP of this first. Get to know the target language you're about to teach. This is the starting point for experienced teachers and new teachers alike. Research the grammar point you are meant to teach. What is its meaning? When a student hears it in conversation or sees it in writing, do they understand the message it's trying to convey? What is its form? If I break this up into bits and pieces, what is the formula of this target language? And of course, the pronunciation. Are there any contractions in this target language? Are there any stronger words, stressed words? Are there any weaker forms in this target language? So that encapsulates the MFP. And remember that meaning is synonymous with function. So when we say the meaning of the target language, we mean function. Form relates to structure, pronunciation aspects, as mentioned earlier, contractions, stressed words, that sort of thing when we're actually teaching this form. What do students hear? So that there is the first conditional, but that's not where your research ends. You've now got to go to various resources online or a grammar book that you've borrowed from someone and research this target language back to front. If you can't find any good resources, ask us on Tutor Support and we'll send you a few links, a few useful videos that you can watch based on the first conditional. Right, so that is the form that your lesson is based on for assignment B. And remember, this is the level 5 assignment. So assignment B is grammar based. All right, so now we're going to have a look at the various documents. So when you scroll down the assignment page, you will see that there are all these documents. Some of them are in MS Word and some of them are in PDF format. Um, the MS Word files are the ones you are meant to work on because those you can edit. The PDF files are just models for you to use as a guide. And remember that the models are based on an entirely different target language to the one specified in the instructions. Of course, we can't give you an exact assignment based on the assignment target language because that would be like writing the assignment for you. So remember that the models are just there to guide you. The templates, the MS Word templates are the ones that you work with and that you type your information on in all the blank spots, right? So among the assignment files, you'll see the PPP grammar table. You'll see a lesson plan. You'll see the teacher language document. You'll see a board plan file, and you'll see a materials file. As mentioned earlier, by default, these are in MS Word and must be, remember this please, must be converted to PDF format once you've completed your assignment and you are ready to upload. We need those files in PDFs. Your tutors will not open MS Word files. Why? Because these can be edited, these can be changed. We want to give you security that your assignment files have not been tampered with in any way. So they've got to be submitted in PDF format. Right, so those are the downloadable files. And if you have any problems with them, if you can't access them for some reason, send us a message on tutor support and we will gladly clarify what the problem is or send it to you so that you can try and opening it via an email. All right, so that there are the files. But remember earlier I mentioned that there's also a model assignment right there for you to peruse and to look at. But remember please that the model assignment has been done in an entirely different based on an entirely different grammar point. So the assignment that you must submit is based on the first conditional, while the model assignment files are based on the present perfect tense. These are just to guide you and show you how we want the assignment files filled in. Your assignment must be, and I cannot stress this enough, based on the first conditional. Our models are a guide only. Right, so let's have a little deeper look at all the various files that we mentioned just a little bit earlier. So the PPP file, right, is to give us an understanding of your understanding, so to speak. We want to see, looking at the PPP file, that you've understood the first conditional, that you understand its form, its structure, its function, and that you understand how it fits into a grammar lesson. So the PPP table is not going to be given to your students at any point. That is between you and us as your markers. We want to see that you understand the target language and that you understand the basic skeleton of a lesson plan. So the grammar table is basically a consolidation, a summary of your lesson plan and an assessment of your knowledge of the target language. It's MFP, that's meaning, form, pronunciation, and also how it forms part of the PPP lesson plan. Remember, though, that this table is not optional. All the questions must be answered, so please write something in every single category. And if you're not sure what it is we're asking of you in that category, first consult the model PPP plan just to see what's going on. And if still it isn't clear to you, which is also okay, send us a message on tutor support and we'll happily clarify that for you. Right. So remember, PPP is just to assess your understanding of the target language and how this all fits into a lesson plan. Right, and the very next file we're going to have a look at is, in fact, the lesson plan. For me, this is the core of your assignment because remember, as mentioned earlier, we cannot see you or watch you performing this lesson or teaching this lesson. So the lesson plan gives us that visual. We go through the stages of your lesson plan and we can actually visualize exactly what you're going to do. So please fill in every part of the lesson plan that's blank. Page 1 includes the details of your lesson, like your aims, your objectives, the assumed knowledge, anticipated problems. And then also, if you look at the various columns, there's a column for the stage, a column for the aim of that particular stage, and also timing, interaction, teacher activity versus student activity. In other words, during a particular stage, what will the teacher be doing versus the students? The teacher will maybe be handing out a worksheet, monitoring while students work. Student column, students will be working together to complete the worksheet. So the lesson plan is quite self-explanatory, but you're filling it with the various stages of your lesson plan, your activities, and exactly what you want to carry over to your students. Then at the end of the lesson plan template, there is also a space for a paragraph. And here we just want a little bit of you explaining why you've chosen this context, why you've chosen the materials you've chosen, just a little bit of rationale behind the choices you've made for your lesson. All right. And then also we've given you a little bit of a word requirement, word limit requirement. So please try and stick to that as closely as possible. The lesson plan itself doesn't have a word limit, but the paragraphs that we ask you to write, they would. All right. So a quick reminder, I think that we can't talk about the lesson plan without looking at those lesson plan stages, because remember earlier, I promised you that we were going to discuss exactly what goes into a PPP lesson plan. So what is this PPP I keep going on about, right? So any good lesson plan starts with the warmer. Your warmer sets the scene for the rest of your lesson. So if you've chosen the upcoming holidays as a context for your lesson, then in your warmer, you would maybe show a few pictures of holiday time. You'd ask students what they usually do during the holidays, what they plan to do in the upcoming holidays. But remember, it is imperative that you do not use the target language in your warmer. Don't ask them questions in the target language just yet. Do not expect them to use the target language. Why? Because you've not taught it to them yet. When I say target language, I mean the first conditional. The warmer is a quick stage. I recommend 5 minutes here, just to engage your students. Then we have the first P of the 3 Ps. We have presentation. The presentation stage is where you are eliciting and concept checking your target language, the first conditional, using the context that you set earlier in your warmer. So say, for example, in your warmer, you introduce the context of the upcoming holidays and what they like to do. In the presentation stage is where you drag that same holiday context into that second stage, and you use back and forth banter between you and your students to lead them to that first conditional model sentence. Get it from them. Allow your students to be the first ones to produce that sentence with prompting from you. Try to avoid as best you can using it yourself before you've elicited that model. The next P is P for practice, and this is also known as controlled practice. And here I recommend a worksheet, good old-fashioned worksheet. Why? Because they can do it in class, they can check it with you, they can take it home as revision. So a good solid worksheet, maybe 2 if you've got the time, and allow them to work on the accuracy, gap fills, matching, unscrambling tasks. All those sorts of tasks that encourage accuracy are good here. And then the third P is P for produce. And this is where, or it's also synonymous with freer practice. And this is where your students really need to get to speak naturally. So give them a topic. Maybe link it to your warmers topic. For example, the holidays, and now put them in pairs. Let them talk about what they're going to do in these upcoming holidays. Give them a role play, a parent and a teen, or the child, or whatever age group they are, and have them talk about the upcoming holidays and, negotiate a few plans, versus pocket money, that sort of thing. So think about activities in the third P for produce that really get them using the target language, the first conditional, as they would outside, to talk to people, to negotiate, to express likely possibilities. Just let them speak. Nothing too structured, no call and answer where the target language use is predicted. Allow them to use it where and when they see fit. Natural conversation. Remember that. And then the final stage, not part of the 3 Ps, but coincidentally starts with a P, is your P for plenary. And this is a consolidatory stage where learning is summarized in the form of a Q&A, maybe another set of concept questions, homework allocation, planning or writing that's meant for homework. So think of that stage that just sort of consolidates everything. I also like to ask my students if, to do some peer teaching. Pretend the person next to you hasn't come to class and you've got to fill them in quickly. What did we learn? What was easy? What was difficult? The plenary is a vital stage, just like the warmer. The warmer gets everything going and the plenary wraps everything up. And in between, you've got your body, which is your presentation, practice, and produce. I hope that's clear. All right, so now that we've looked at the lesson plan, we're going to look at the very next template, which is your teacher language. Now, remember I said to you earlier, can't watch you teaching. We can't hear your voice. We can't hear you presenting the new target language. So we've given you this file so you can literally write your script. Write it like a dialogue, but please use the template as we've given it to you. There are headings, use them. There are sections, use them. There is an example model. Do not delete it, just use it as guidance, right? So there are 2 sections on the teacher language file. The first section is the presentation of the new target language, which is the first conditional. And the second is where we want you to write the little script of a verbal instruction to one of your tasks so that we can hear that you can give students an instruction, get them started on a task in a really simplified, graded manner. So that is just a very quick breakdown of the teacher language file. So just a reminder of what all these little techniques entail. When I talk about eliciting and concept checking, what do I mean? So eliciting the target language, well, this involves asking simple, graded questions using, remember, your warmer's context to elicit the model sentence, to elicit that first conditional model sentence. Get students to gradually piece together, clause by clause, that model sentence. Ask questions to prompt this. Remember, though, to grade your language, so avoid revealing or using the first conditional yourself. Think about it this way. You're studying Italian or French or another language, and your teacher is using a grammar form that you've not learnt yet. You won't know what they're talking about. So avoid it at all costs. Use what they already know. That's what eliciting the target language entails. The next heading that you will see on the teacher language file is eliciting form. Now remember earlier we said form relates to structure. So use that model sentence that you elicited earlier through context, and now get your students to identify the different structures that make up that form. Where is the subject? Is there a verb in the sentence? What is the tense of the verb? Is there another verb in the sentence? What is the tense of this verb? And as they give that to you, you as the teacher writes down that formula underneath that model sentence, because that's exactly what they do. They write down the model sentence. As you elicit the form, they write the form down. So get your students to be part of this process, though. If we see in your assignment that you're just giving them the structure by telling them, right, class, in our model sentence, first we have if, then we have a subject, then we have the present simple tense, then we have, if you're doing that, you're not really eliciting, are you? And you might get your assignment back. So try as best you can to elicit the target language. We're not looking for perfection, but we are looking to see that you've tried the technique of eliciting versus just giving away information, right? And also, as mentioned earlier, as you elicit the form, you label that model sentence so that your students can write down the different parts that make up the structure, because remember, they're going to use it later on in their practice stage. Grade your language, use what they only know at this stage, and reduce your teacher talking time. Remember, it's all about them. You don't need to improve your English, they do. All right, and then the last part of the teacher language section A is concept checking, where we want you to ask simple concept questions to check their understanding of function, meaning. Do they understand that in that sentence, if I study, I will pass the test? Do they see that there are two events, that both events are possible, that the one event at the end is sort of very much dependent on the other? Do they see that? And your concept questions really need to assess the understanding of those concepts. So ask a few simple graded concept questions. If you don't understand these fully, send us a ticket and we will send you a little bit of help and assistance on this. But remember, if you've written your dialogue, you cannot send it to us to check, but you can ask us questions. All right, so that brings the teacher language section 1 to an end. But remember, there's also that instruction you've got to write, the teacher language section 2, where we want to see you writing a verbal instruction. That we want, what we are trying to assess here is, can you instruct your students to do a task, keeping it simple, breaking it up into simple steps, and also checking that your students have understood what to do before they start the activity. So please keep the section clean, keep it simple, and also remember how you understand instructions. Me, for example, I'm a terrible instruction taker. They've got to be broken up. They've got to be simplified. And I like someone to check that I know what to do before they set me free to do the task. You need to do the same with your students, whether they're children, whether they're adults. But for this assignment, absolutely check understanding. So that's the second section, and that's teacher language done and dusted. So remember, the teacher language file is so we can hear you. So we can hear what you sound like when you teach. We can hear that the words you're using are nice and simple for your class. We can hear that you're really engaging them with that context you set earlier in your warmer. This is the presentation stage dialogue. And we really would like for your students to understand what you're saying. And that's the kind of stuff that we're assessing in the teacher language section. All right, then you'll see a template for the board plan. And the board plan, remember, so the teacher language section A is your dialogue representation of your presentation stage, whereas the board plan is that visual representation of the presentation stage, what your students will see. Teacher language, what they'll hear. Board plan, what they'll see. Please include all the aspects specified at the top of the template. We ask for things like your example sentences. We ask for things like the form. We ask for, I think we ask for affirmative, negative, and question forms, and a timeline. So the timeline is a visual presentation or representation of your model sentence, really. It shows where in time the two events in your first conditional sentence take place. Now remember, with the first conditional, when I say to you, if I go to the party, I will wear my new t-shirt. If I go, right? It's a present simple verb, I go, but it's not happening now. It's happening in the future. And your timeline must show this. Your timeline must show where in time the two events of that spoken sentence are taking place. So the timeline, we need to see the actual image embedded, copied, pasted into your board plan, and I think also in your PPP plan, we need it pasted there too. Not just a description, the actual image. There's an example on the board, but if you want us to send you one on tutor support, ask us. We've got a few nice templates that you can have a look at just to guide you on what a timeline is meant to entail. Right, and the final thing that we're going to be talking about is, of course, your materials. Now, the materials file must include everything you will use or give to your students during the lesson. So the images that you might use during the warmer, the worksheets that you will give them during that practice, controlled practice stage. Maybe you're going to give them a few images to use during the freer practice to prompt conversation and to give them a little bit of assistance. All those need to be included in your materials file. Not only links to worksheets, the actual worksheet copied and pasted into the materials file. Not only links to your imagery, the actual images, screenshot, copy paste, whatever you need to do. Your marker should not need to click on links to view your materials. They should be open, visual, very clear for your marker to grade, right? Of course, you will also provide links to these in your bibliography, but this is a separate file. In the materials file, all your marker needs to do is scroll through to see, this is their controlled practice, this is the material they'll use for freer practice, label everything clearly. So remember, reference all your materials in the bibliography too, but your materials file, think about it like a catalog. We really need to see what you will be using and giving to your students during this lesson. Right, and then also the final file. Sorry, I said the materials file is the final file, but that's not it. The final file is your bibliography. The bibliography is not something that you can just leave out. It is vital that you finish this document and also send it to us. You must reference all your materials and resources using the reference guide on our site. So if you look among the downloadable files that I mentioned earlier, you'll also see something called referencing. So click on that, open it up, because it'll show you exactly how we want things to be referenced, whether it be a website, whether it be a book, whether it be an image. We show you, we give you examples of referencing, and this is the style we'd like you to use. It's the Harvard style of referencing, but we also understand that sometimes you're not able to find all the information we require. Just give as much as you can, and always date your references. So say, for example, you accessed that reference a day ago, date it so that we can see how recently you've accessed it. This tells us that maybe it's still valid and it should still be accessible. All right, so that is the materials file going into the referencing file. Please submit a bibliography. Even if you've created your own materials, you can of course say worksheet created by teacher, but tell us, where did you get the guidance, the inspiration? You can reference our site, you can reference any other helpful sites out there that you might have used. Online dictionaries, all resources that you can reference. All right, so a few parting tips before we open up Q&A. Remember that on tutor support, we can answer questions about your assignment, but we cannot preview your work. You will not be able to send us bits and pieces of your assignment saying, is this okay, before I submit it? This is not suitable. Why? Because we have a limited submission policy, and to keep it fair for everyone, we cannot preview work before you submit. But remember, we can answer questions. The second tip I have for you is, please do your own work. Use ideas out there as guidance, of course, use as inspiration. As teachers, we're always looking for inspiration, for ideas, for guidance, and by all means, use those ideas. But please make sure that your work that you submit, right from your lesson plan wording, right down to your referencing, that it's all your own work. Very important. And then also, another tip is, it's okay to have to resubmit. Our course has been created for people who have not taught before. So we do understand that these concepts are new. They're brand new. When I did my TEFL, it sounded like another language to me. So we do understand that all these concepts are new, or at least some of them. So of course you're going to make mistakes. So remember, first and foremost, we're not looking for perfection in these lesson plans. I don't even know if perfection ever comes, but very close to perfection comes, miles later. But we're looking for you to try these techniques. But if you have to resubmit, it's not that you've failed the assignment. It's just that one or two parts just need a little bit of work before we can pass it. You've not failed the whole assignment. We just need you maybe to go and revise that section and resubmit. Or maybe it's just a technical thing that we can't open a file, or it's maybe the situation that we cannot view something very clearly, or maybe you've given something away that you should have elicited. So just remember that when we ask you to resubmit, it's not that you failed the whole assignment. It's possible that just one or two pieces need a little bit of revision. So it's okay. All right. And then if you do not understand your markers' feedback, remember, the markers will always give feedback. So if you can't find your feedback, you've got to go and look for it somewhere on the page. And if you can't find it, please either look in our instructions or send us a ticket to tutor support, and we'll give you the instructions of how to access your feedback. But please remember, a marker will not say resubmit without telling you which section to work on, what's wrong in that section, and how you can improve it. That is how detailed the feedback usually is. If, however, you don't fully understand the feedback, or you're a little bit confused about which section of the assignment the feedback is referring to, please ask us on tutor support. We will either clarify it for you right then and there, or we'll ask your marker to clarify that for you. All right. And then when you resubmit, even if you've only had to work on 2 files, say it's got to be the lesson plan and the teacher language, even though you've only got to work on 2 files, you must resubmit your full assignment when you are ready. We can only on our platform accept full assignments with each submission. Doesn't matter if you've only got to work on 1 or 2 files, resubmit everything. All right. So I think we've come to the end of me talking to you, and now you've got the opportunity to talk to me. But just a reminder that all previous webinars are available on our YouTube channel. And of course, you can ask us questions on tutor support if you do not understand something in the webinar, if you don't understand something in the assignment instructions, the course content. We're available on tutor support, and we're available almost all the time. So you're very, very welcome to send us those questions. Also, this actual webinar will be available in a few days' time. So check Monday, Tuesday latest. It should be available too. So if you've missed the first part, or if something went by too quickly, of course, we make this available to you, and you are more than welcome to rewatch as many times as needed, and also go through the archives and check if there are any other webinars that you find useful. Right, so happy days. We are ready for Q&A, and now is your opportunity to write your question in the chat function, and I will of course get to as many of those as possible. But please, just a reminder to those of you who maybe joined a little bit later, the questions that will be answered today will relate only to the topic presented today, and that is level 5 assignment B, the grammar assignment based on the first conditional form. So now is your opportunity to type your questions. If you did type questions a lot earlier on, I might have missed them because they come in as you make all your comments. So I might ask you to repost your questions because the chat keeps moving, and I don't want to miss your questions. So I'm going to go with the most recent one I can see. All right, so I've got a question here from Saji, I think, and the question says, should the assignment look exotic and be something unique, or can we stick to authenticity and just keep it simple? I'm going to say the latter, Saji. The reason is because from a marker's perspective, it's easier to check that you've reached all the grading criteria if you keep your work simple. Remember, you can dazzle your students with beautiful imagery in the warmer, or you can dazzle them with fun activities, but your basic structures, keep it simple. Absolutely simple. And you know what? I'm going to give you that advice going forward in any grammar lesson. Keep to the structures, keep it simple. You can add creativity because you'll know what your students like and what they dislike. But yeah, keep it simple. The simple assignments are the ones that are best to mark. We can see where everything is, we can see where you're going, we can see what you're trying to achieve, and those are the assignments that normally do very, very well. So great question, keep it simple. All right, so we've got another question. Is there a word limit for the teacher language section? Yes, I think there is, but also if you cannot find the word limit, Victoria, do check in the model assignment. The model assignment gives you a guide as to how long each section should be, and I would say copy paste that into a Word file, have a look at the word limit there, and then use that as a guide. The model is 100% there to guide you. And it is pretty much quite standard for both forms. How many words you're going to use to present, for example, the present perfect in the models is pretty much very similar to what you're going to be doing with the first conditional. So absolutely use the models as a guide. All right, and remember, I'm working with the questions I can see. If you put your question in a lot earlier, I'm going to ask you to repost it. Kiara, I've got your question. For the freer activity, what about a matching card game? So, Kiara, the short answer is no. And the reason is your students are going to take one card and another card and make a sentence, right? That's not very natural. When I say freer practice, it's they've got to have some freedom with the target language. In other words, maybe if your context was all about the upcoming holidays, right? Then your freer practice could be, right, you and your partner or you and your friend next to you talk about the holidays. What will you do? Think about the weather. Think about the amount of pocket money you'll have. Think about what your parents will agree to. And for 5 minutes, each of you talk about what you want to do. They'll be able to decide naturally, right, Kiara, when they are going to be using the first conditional. So maybe if you and I are having this conversation, I would say something like, Kiara, if I get pocket money from my parents, I will go to the fun fair. And I think I'll spend all my money there. And then Kiara will say, yeah, I think that's a really nice idea. I think I'll do that too, but only if I can do this. So as you can see, we're kind of negotiating and deciding spontaneously when to use the target language, whereas the game very much dictates, that matching game very much dictates when they've got to use it. And that is not quite what we mean by freer practice. All right. So let's see. I'm trying to see if I've missed any questions. Right, so we've got one here. Can I show how I would correct a learner in the teacher language document, or is it a perfect lesson? There is no such thing as a perfect lesson. So absolutely, Tamarin, you can show a little bit of flexibility in your teacher language. For example, if a student says, if I study, or maybe the student says, if I will study, I will pass. And you'll say to them, right, so we don't put will in the same side as if. Try that again. And then maybe the student will produce, if I study, I will pass, right? So absolutely, to keep it natural and to show us a little bit of your skill there, you can absolutely put a few natural responses from your students. All right, so Malasedi's question, greetings to everyone, greetings to you. Please explain, what do you mean if you say the assignment must be prepared in the conditional form? Malasedi, I'm going to suggest that you rewatch this webinar because the conditional is the grammatical structure you are teaching in this lesson. The lesson of your assignment. So remember, it's a grammar lesson. The assignment is based on a grammar lesson, and the grammar point that you are teaching to your class is the first conditional form. So not the present simple tense, not the present continuous, not the past perfect, the first conditional form. That's what we mean by the lesson is based on the first conditional. All right. Okay, so Tamarin, another question from you. How detailed should I be in the lesson plan? Should I write every detail and what I and the learners do? And should I reason why and what I do? So again, Tamarin, what I'm going to suggest here is that you have a look at the model lesson plan, right? So the model lesson plan is to show you not only how we want the templates filled in, but what we need in terms of detail. How detailed we need things to be, right? So it'll show you that, things need to be really visual for your marker, because remember, as we said, we can't see you teaching this lesson. The lesson plan is that visual that we have. So it explains to us, we can sort of visualize when it says teacher gives students a worksheet, teacher monitors, students get in pairs and work together, 5 minutes allocated for this. We can see how that's going to play out in a real lesson. So yes, the model will show you how detailed your lesson plan needs to be, and I would say definitely keep referring back to that. Okay, so Sarah's asked, is there a time limit on the assignment? So Sarah, I need to just maybe understand your question. Do you mean, is there a time limit for the lesson plan, like how long the lesson is for your students that you'll be preparing? Or is there a time limit on how much time you have to do the actual assignment? So, first question, if it's that one, the lesson plan is based on a 60-minute lesson, teaching the first conditional. Second question, if you're asking about your time limit to do the assignment, there is no particular time limit. No, as long as you finish within your 6-month period and as long as your final assignment is submitted at least 2 weeks before your course ends. Bear in mind and please factor in that each assignment takes up to 5 working days for marking. Slightly longer during busy periods, but we try not to exceed this by too much. But if you're asking the latter, no, there's no particular time limit for the assignments. All right. So Suleiman, I did say I was only going to answer questions about assignment B, but I will help you out here. We've done a webinar on assignment C, and we will most likely do another one. But if you missed it, you can absolutely go onto our YouTube page, our channel, and you'll be able to find all these webinars, including assignment C, which we did quite recently, actually. If you can't find the YouTube channel, send us a ticket on tutor support and we'll send you the link, and you can scroll through hundreds of webinars and choose the one that works for you. Okay, so what I am going to say, I don't really like to answer very specific questions about what you're going to do in your assignment because, yes, we are talking about the general structure of the assignment, but I do want to answer this one for Roz, right? The question is, with explaining the first conditional, can you use, if I am paid this Saturday, I can go to the hairdresser. So as mentioned at the start of this webinar, maybe you missed it, Roz, please only stick to if and will. Not can, not other modals, stick to if and will. Also, am paid. If I am paid is a passive form. Your students might find this a little bit overwhelming. So I would rather say if I have money on Saturday, I will go to the hairdresser. If I receive my salary by Saturday, I will go to the hairdresser. So I would say stick to an active form in your if clause and stick to will only in your assignment, please. All right, and you're welcome. Let's see. Kiara wants to know, can we use the weather context? Absolutely. I know that in our tickets and in tutor support, lots of our examples relate to the weather, and then maybe you're thinking, oh, now I can't use it because it's been in. Absolutely, you can. Your take is going to be entirely different. So absolutely, because I think there's nothing more conditional than the weather. So much depends on the weather, our holiday plans, our weekend plans, our after school plans. So I would say, Kiara, maybe tie it in with something like the weekend, right? If it's sunny on the weekend, we will go to the beach. If it's rainy on the weekend, well, we'll stay home and watch Netflix. I don't know. So I would say absolutely you can use the weather as that deciding factor, but give them something in the future to look at. When thinking about the weather, are they thinking about the after school plans? Are they thinking about, it's Friday and tomorrow's the weekend? So I would say, yes, the weather's a great context, but give them something in the future to think about and to visualize so that already they are starting to talk and think and feel in terms of future possibility, if that makes sense. And great question here, Tamarin. When you refer to grading our language, is that referring to the CEFR vocabulary level? So yes, but there's more, right? So when it comes to vocabulary, use a grammar lesson is not really the place to introduce new vocabulary because you want them to focus on the new grammar. You don't still want them to have to learn new vocabulary, right? So I think that when it comes to vocabulary, use a context that's relatable for them because they will then produce and understand most of the vocabulary. But Tamarin, it's also about grading your grammar. Because if you're using grammatical structures that they have not yet learned, they also won't know what you mean. They might recognize a few words in your sentence, but the core meaning of your sentence is lost. So not only when you're thinking about grading your language, think in terms of vocabulary, but also the grammar you use, right? So I'm trying to learn Italian at the moment, and it's very hard. I was just getting the vocabulary right, and now there's grammar on the platform too. And the minute my teacher starts using grammar that I've not yet studied, I don't know whether she's talking about the past, the present, or the future. I don't know whether she's talking about something she wants to do or has done. So I'm lost because I don't understand the grammar yet. So it's not only vocabulary, it's grammar too. All right, I hope that helps. Okay, and remember, Roz, if you missed the start of the webinar, you can absolutely watch this again. It'll probably be available maybe Monday or Tuesday, and then you can absolutely watch it again and again and again. All right, Sarah, I think I answered your question too, right? Okay. Right, I'm going through to see if I have missed anything. All right, and if you've got any questions, we still have a few minutes. I know that the assignment can be a little bit daunting. Now's the time to ask. So please ask your questions. I think a couple more have come in. All right. If I have missed your question, please retype it. It's just possible that it's entered the stream a little bit early on. Right, so we've got a question here that isn't related to today's webinar. Erin wants to know, I've signed on to level 3. Is the information for this assignment still relevant to know for me? Yeah, because in level 3, there is also reference to a PPP lesson plan. In fact, you have to create one. So yeah, you'll also find it quite useful. Of course, it's based on an entirely different target language, slightly different group, that sort of thing. But yes, Erin, I always find that any webinar around grammar or around constructing a grammar lesson is helpful, so absolutely. But there are level 3 webinars available already. So if you missed them, you can absolutely watch them too. All right, and then Kiara, sorry, I missed this one. For the free activity, what about a game? A game, again, think about it this way. If the game is just ask in first conditional, answer in first conditional, or take one clause, match it with another clause, one card, another card to create a sentence, it's all quite structured. It's not quite freer. So remember what I said earlier, something a bit more conversational, a bit of role play, maybe an interview, journalist, that sort of thing, a little bit more natural. I would go with something a bit less contrived than a game. A game you'll find surprising is better suited to the controlled practice stage. Okay, great question, because people always tend to miss this one. So no problem. I'm happy you're asking. Where can we access the referencing guide talked about in the stream earlier? So the referencing guide is when you get to the assignment page, right? So the assignment page, you'll find all your downloadable files that you're meant to work on for the assignment. Among those files is the referencing guide. The referencing guide will show you how we want things referenced. You're not going to fail your assignment because a couple of those details are missing, but we would like to see as much as possible of what we've stipulated in the referencing guide. If you cannot find the referencing guide, please don't stress. Send us a ticket on tutor support and we will literally send it to you with a boatload of referencing information that might help you too. All right. Okay, Suleiman, I see this question. Do we have to elicit the 4? I'm not sure what you mean there, but I'm going to assume you mean the form of the first conditional. Yes, on the teacher language file where it says elicit form, that's where you'll type your dialogue with your class showing how you will elicit the form. So if you missed that part of the webinar, I'm going to ask you to rewatch it because basically we give tips on how to do this and also what it means to elicit form. Form relates to structure, if plus subject plus present simple plus subject plus will plus infinitive. That's the form, right? And we don't just give our students that formula. We try to elicit that from them. How do we do that? We use the model sentence that we elicited earlier in our dialogue, and we use that to elicit the form. But absolutely, yes, Suleiman, you must elicit the form in your assignment. All right. Okay, I hope I've got to all the questions. If Chiara, thank you. Italian is hard as well, harder. So please feel sorry for me. All right, so I'm trying to go through the past questions that have come through. If I missed it, if I missed your question, please retype it. I will absolutely try and get to it. If you have a concern about the assignment or a new question that you've thought of, you can send that too. Those of you saying thank you, our pleasure. We always try to make these webinars exactly what you need, and we do know that you need assistance with the assignment. So yeah, I think that if there are no new questions to answer, I think we can wrap this up and you can go and enjoy the rest of your weekend, right? So please remember what we are going to need from you is that you fill in the survey. We always need the survey filled in. And the reason we need this is so that we can really fine tune these webinars and see exactly what it is you need, right? Another question has come in quickly. Is it possible to have an example of lesson plan for the assignment? Adepo, as mentioned earlier, on the assignment page, there is a model assignment. In other words, a model lesson plan, an example lesson plan showing you exactly how to fill in the lesson plan. But remember, the model is based on a different grammar point to the one specified in the assignment. All right. So now I see a few questions coming in now that we've wrapped up Q&A. All right, I've got another question and I'm going to answer. Is it best to use a combination of found resources and resources provided in the resource page? Is it best to use a combination of resources and resources provided in the resource page? I'm not sure what you're referring to here, but you know, we provide all the templates. We give examples of resources that you can use, but I'm not quite sure, Lisa. So maybe once, if you can clarify that question, send it to us on tutor support, and we will absolutely see exactly what it is you need so that we can answer that question for you. All right. So yeah, we've come to the end of our webinar. I'd really like to thank you for attending today. If you are typing a few questions in right now, and you see that we've missed those, do send them to tutor support, and I guarantee you, we will absolutely answer them, and we'll answer them quickly. All right. Also, please remember to fill in the survey for us. I'm going to put it into the chat right now. Right, it's in the chat right now, so please fill in the survey. If you've done it before and you can do it again, no problem. Please redo it. Send us the results because we absolutely like to fine tune these webinars into exactly what you need. Yeah, so please fill in the survey when you can. I will also display it on the screen for a few minutes after the webinar. But yes, if you've got a few minutes, please do that. All right. So again, thank you very, very much for joining. It was absolutely lovely to have this conversation with you today about the Level 5 Assignment B. And remember, you can rewatch this webinar in a couple of days. And in the meantime, scroll through our YouTube channel and see what else is available. So to all of you, have a wonderful rest of the weekend, and I'll see you next time. same time, same place next week. Have a good one, everyone. Bye.